Good afternoon, class. My name is Jason House, and I am a student at National University, and I'm pursuing a degree in organizational leadership. So today we'll talk about transactional leadership, and this is a kind of a challenge for me because I wasn't a big fan of transactional leadership. So this forced me to get outside there and research it a little bit, and it's actually got some good things to offer. But we'll touch a little bit on that later on. Okay. So first off, we're going to talk about the definition of transactional leadership. We'll touch on a little bit of the history, some characteristics, some pro cons, and then kind of how it affects society as a whole. We'll touch a little bit on that, but it has a little different aspects depending on the time period. So, all right, transactional leadership. So according to businessdictionary.com, it's a style of leadership that is based on setting of clear objectives and goals for their followers, as well as the use of either punishments or rewards in order to encourage compliance with these goals. So it is transactional leadership is more of a contract between the employee and the leader. So it's transactional leaders focus more on the short-term goals and standard rules and procedures, so they're more of a stickler for abiding by the line. This style of leadership may work well where the organizational problems are simple and clearly defined, but you start getting into complex problems where human nature and human emotions start playing in, and so it's a little more difficult to do with transactional leadership. Transactional leadership does not promote creativity and doesn't focus on developing the employees. It's more of a what can I get done today, and let's stick to that. Transactional leaders generally do not look ahead and strategically guiding an organization to a position of market leadership. Instead, they're solely concerned on making sure everything flows smoothly today. So when you think about transactional leadership, I want you to go back to the carrot and stick analogy, where the carrot, you got the reward, the stick's the punishment. So it's more based on Douglas McGregor's theory X, where the manager needs to rule by fear and consequences, and it's more of the negative behavior is punished and the employees are motivated through the incentives. So they're motivated for the anticipation of rewards, and they're punished when they have negative behavior. So that's kind of a basis of transactional leadership. So let's talk a little bit about the history. So in 1947, Weber was the first described rational legal leadership as a style that would become known as transactional leadership. So he basically broke down leadership into three different styles: traditional, charismatic, and rational legal, or what we know as bureaucratic. The rational legal was the one that became transactional leadership. So he based this on what he thought was a legal order system. So what creates it says Weber defined legal order as a system wherein the rules are enacted and obeyed as legitimate because they are in line with other laws on how they can be enacted and how they should be obeyed. These rules are enforced by government that monopolizes their enactment while holding the legitimate use of physical force. So according to Weber, a modern state exists where the political community has three elements. First, an administrative and legal order that has been created and can be changed by legislation that also determines its role. Second, it must have a binding authority over citizens and actions in its jurisdiction. Think law enforcement, any type of rules and regulations. And it also must possess a right to legitimately use the force in its jurisdiction. So again, I use police and law enforcement as an example of this. If you break the law, you get punished, and they have the authority to punish you by giving you speeding tickets, arresting you, whatever it may be. So that rational legal or bureaucratic style leadership is what morphed into transactional leadership. So political scientist James McGregor Burns was one of the prominent authors to advance Weber's theories. He developed what we now know as transformational leadership. So he focused more on honesty, fairness, and responsibility, and honoring commitments. He argued that both transactional and transformational leaders must be of moral and of higher purpose. So instead of thinking of Douglas McGregor's theory X, think of theory Y. Theory Y is where they focus on encouraging their workers, motivation. They focus on trust, respect, and self-motivation of your workers. So he just took a spin from transactional leadership and spun a little theory Y to it, and focus more on the encouragement of the workers versus just straight punishment and reward. So then you have Bernard Bass, who further defined it as contingent reward, passive management, and active management. So contingent reward is it is what it is. It's based on, you're waiting for the reward. So you're expecting a reward for good deeds. So passive management is where the manager does not interfere with workflow unless an issue arises. And then active management is where he anticipates that there's going to be a problem, and he kind of just waits for that problem to happen, and then he steps in. So he's kind of waiting for you to fail. All right, some characteristics of transactional leadership. What I really want to point out here is the resistance to change. They don't like things changing. They don't like the surprise. They're not innovative. So transactional leadership likes to stick to what they know and how to get through the day. They discourage independent thinking, so it doesn't develop leaders. It doesn't make people critically think and ask the big why questions. They reward performance, so if you do good, you get rewards, you get promotions, you get extra, you get rewarded for whatever you do that's considered good. We talk about the passive. Emphasis and self-interest. So what I want to focus here is if the employee achieves a certain goal, they're rewarded. There isn't much emphasis on teamwork or achievement of group goals. So it's all, what can I do and how can I better the next person? It's kind of like a dog-eat-dog world kind of thing out there. Some kinds of leadership, of transactional leadership. So they're simplistic and easy to administer. You do good, you get rewarded. You do bad, you get punished. It's pretty simple. Hierarchies are minimized, so there's a very clear and concise chain of command or command structure that's laid out, so everybody knows exactly where they fall within that hierarchy, and there is no wiggle room. They don't take into account the emotions, intelligence, or task complexity, so they take the human element out of the situation, and it's purely based on the task. However, whenever time is of the essence, transactional leadership can be very expedient because it doesn't take let's figure this out together and the why behind it. It just do as I say and let's go. So, all right, let's go to some cons of transactional leadership. It disregards emotions and social values. It's again, let's go back to the dog-eat-dog world. It's really let's see, right down the last one. Theory encourages destructive competition and in the long run can impair an organization, especially from the inside. So if everybody's competing against one another and they're not worried about the group succeeding as a whole, it becomes very independent and self-serving, and it can ruin relationships and ruin the company. It may be used to exploit people. So let's say you're working at a job and you're scared you're going to get fired. The manager knows that, and the manager can use that to his advantage and make you do things outside of what you're getting paid to do. Or he can push you further because he knows you're going to do it because you're scared you're going to get fired. So you're fearing that punishment. Effects on society. So it's very insulting. It doesn't develop leadership. And again, it's not very dignifying. So what I want to talk about is the Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So let's take his last one, is self-actualization. That's the one that he said was the key, one of the most important. It allows someone to reach their full potential and realize their full potential. However, if you are constantly, dehumanizing this person, insulting this person, and you're robbing this person of dignity, and then you're coming down here and you're not bringing out the best of the people and you're not developing leaders, how is someone supposed to realize their full potential and how they're supposed to exercise that full potential? So this really plays into Abraham's or Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because it takes the hierarchy of needs, the physical, safety, esteem, love, and self-actualization, and it plays against the employee. So the manager uses this to take advantage of the employees. Effects on society, more extreme, starvation, torture, execution, of course, is in tyrannical environments. Let's take Pavlov's dog, for example. He would hear the bell and start saliva for waiting for food. So the basis of it was if one presents a dog with food, accompanied by the sound of a bell, the dog usually will salivate before eating. After a while, the dog will just salivate at the absence of food, but when he hears the bell. So this transactional leadership is based really on the expectation of a reward. So the employee or the follower knows they're going to get a reward, so that's what's pushing them. But in tyrannical environments, it was the fear of punishment that would promote obedience. All right, some of the things we talked about today was the definition of transactional leadership, the history, the characteristics, pro cons, and kind of how they affect society as a whole. And there's no questions. I have one question for you. Many researchers believe that the best leadership style is a combination of transactional and transformational leadership. So can you think of a moment where transactional leadership may be the preferred method or style of leadership? All right, thank you very much, and I hope everybody has a good weekend.